fitness professional and the founder of Shredder Gang, a professional nutrition and fitness company committed to helping individuals lead healthier and happier lives. She is an alumnus of the University of Toronto, where she obtained 2 degrees. Bunmi established Shredder Gang without financial capital at the age of 24, drawing inspiration from her own personal weight loss journey and subsequent transformation. She has since grown the organization to be one of Nigeria's largest commercial health and fitness communities, replicating her testimony in the lives of many other people. Bunmi was recognized as one of Nigeria's 100 most inspiring women by Leading Ladies Africa in 2017 and 2023. In 2019, she was recognized as Top 25 Women to Look Out For by Genevieve magazine. She was also awarded by TSC as one of the top 40 entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Her passion to help people discover healing emotionally and physically motivates her to speak regularly on various platforms like Wimby's annual conference, Fate Foundation Conference, to name a few. She was recently awarded by His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State, as one of the 100 women impacting the city of Lagos, #Eco100 Women. In 2023, Bunmi George was awarded Top 100 Female Founders in Africa. With a warm round of applause, welcome Bunmi George.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to keep this here in case I don't want to forget anything that I have on my slides. Okay, you may be seated. Getting a sister box. Influence is for the bold. And with influence comes great responsibility. As introduced, my name is Bunmi George. Thank you so much for the invitation, Covenant Nation, and thank you so much, Pastor Podri, for this opportunity to stand on this platform. For many people, social media is about likes, gaining 1 million followers, the attention that comes with being called an influencer, getting into rooms that usually you will not get into, getting into brand activations, just getting into places that necessarily you will not really get into. For some people like us, we approach influence quite differently. In fact, I don't call myself an influencer. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I call myself an influence. In the wise words of Jay-Z, he said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Hope you caught that. So for me, I see influence bigger than what I do in terms of getting you to shop for a product, getting you to come to a program like this. I see influence as who I am. And I love that Dr. Foy came up before me because I think he has set the stage for what I'm here to talk about. I see influence as really, really deep. I see influence as me taking what God has given to me and superimposing it on a generation who does not know who they are. So I take his thinking, I take his identity, and I give it to you guys, right? I'll tell you a story that I'm sure a lot of you know about. It's the story in the Gospels where Jesus taught his disciples about the unjust servant. You guys know the story about the unjust servant, right? It's about this rich, wealthy man who had a servant who was unjust. And when I think about the Bible, I like to look at it like, play around with my mind and look at it in everyday life, just like today. So if I was thinking about it in modern day Nigeria or Lagos, you find this very rich man. Think about a rich man that we know in Nigeria. And he has this staff who is doing nonsense with his business. And he says, you know what, hey, you come here. I found out that you're doing rubbish with my business. And he says, you know what, you're fired. Stay with me, guys, I'm going somewhere. And this servant decides that, you know what I'm going to do? If I lose this job, he has already lost the job though, but if I lose this job, I don't have work. Now I'm thinking, was he old? Was he an old guy? So why is he saying that he's not going to get another job? Was he an illiterate? Did somebody just go and put in good words for him to say, you know what, this is a good guy, hire him? Maybe that's how he got the job. He then said in the passage that he is a proud man. He's too proud to beg. So we know three things about this man. That he was a thief. Number two, that he was probably an illiterate. I'm just saying, I don't know. The Bible didn't say that. Number three, but that he was very proud. So what did he do? He went and talked to his master's debtors. And he said, oh, you're owing my master. How much are you owing my master? The first person said, 100 gallons of olive oil. He says, you know what? Don't pay 100, pay 50. He went to the second one. How much are you owing my master? He says, I'm owing your master 100 bags of wheat. He says, you know what? Don't pay 100, pay 80. The Bible only gives accounts of these two debtors. But if this man was a rich man, it means that he probably had more debtors. And he probably went to all of them and took money from them. When his master heard that this is what he had done, his master was not angry. What did he say? He says, the children of this age are smarter than the children of light. I want to bring this home to say this. The world understands influence. They are taking the bull by its horn. They are pushing agenda. They understand pushing their ideas, pushing their own propaganda. But you know what we do as the church? We complain about the world behaving like the world. But we sit back and complain about everything. We complain about government. We complain about family. We complain about entertainment. But what are we doing? Ask yourself that question. What am I doing with my influence? Jesus was the most influential man to walk the face of this earth. He turned the world right side up in 3 years. But you know what? Jesus understood influence so well. He understood that influence was more than just numbers, even though numbers is part of it. You can have a lot of followers on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, and have no real influence. Or you can have a small number of people and have great influence over them. Jesus understood that with the 5,000. He understood that with the 4,000. He understood that with the 120. He understood that with the 12. He also understood it with the 1. Case in point, the woman at the well. He had to pass through Samaria to get to her because he needed to influence her. He understood that that one person was important in the grand scheme of what he was called to do. You know another person who was a young girl in the Bible who I think understood influence? Moses' sister, Miriam. And that time they were killing all the boys. And his mother had this brilliant idea to save this child. What did she do? She took him, she put him in a basket and put him on the river and sent his sister to watch over him. When Pharaoh's daughter went to take a dip, she maybe heard the baby crying or whatnot. She saw him, she pulled him in. What did this girl do? She took the risk. She said, at that point, she understood that she was influential in the life of this little boy. She walked up to the Pharaoh's daughter, not scared, being assertive, and saying, I can find you a Hebrew woman that will nurse this child. This is understanding influence. She said, I will find you one. She went to go and bring the boy's mother. I see influence so differently. No matter the amount of money you give me to push a certain brand or a certain idea or a certain topic, I will never do it if I do not believe or it doesn't stand in place in my value system. I remember about 2 years ago, a certain brand reached out to me to push some products. I'm not going to say what the name is, but I don't really believe in this product, right? And they knew that because I was a thought leader in that industry, if they could get me to okay this, then it was okay. Other people, other moms would think that this is good. They kept coming back and say, at some point they said, how much do you want? Just tell us. Name your price. And I'm like, these guys are really serious. They understand influence. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take a step back. I'm so sorry. I can't do this. Influence has great responsibility. If you are an influencer, influencing is not about status. It is for service. I say it again. Influencing is not for status. It is for service. Jesus said this. He says, if you want to be a leader, you must be what? Be ready to serve. I'll tell you a story about how I became an influence. For as long as I can remember, I have always been quite serious about God and about my convictions, about my identity. The way I talk about marriage is the way I talked about purity when I was single. So this is not just a new thing, it's who I've always been. In fact, it's how I got the name Jbums. I'm sure many of you don't know that the meaning of Jbums is Jesus Bunmi. Some people think my name is Jumoke. My name is not Jumoke. My friends nickname me this because they say, where you see Bunmi, you've seen Jesus. And so, for as long as I can remember, I have always been very, very strong in my convictions. I've always been countercultural. I've always been a rebel. I've always been an Agberu for Jesus. If you see me fighting for Jesus, it's not today. It's been since. Sorry. And I just found over the years that people were quite drawn to my sincere love for God. Sincere love for God, sincere love for my husband, submission to him. I know it's a word that many of you don't like, many women these days don't like to hear. Love for my children, showing up for my business, Shredder Gang, being loyal to my friends. And that's just me, which is why I say that it's so much more than what I do. It is who I am as a person. And I struggled with God because I was very okay with, even though I've been strong in my convictions, I was very okay with not being in the limelight because I didn't want people to look at my life with a microscope and start saying, oh, this, that, to me. So I remember when God, I had been doing stuff, like I said, but I remember when God put his finger on me and said, listen, you're going to do this. And I'm like, no, God, no. Let's just, let me just be doing as I'm doing. In fact, many people knew about Shredder Gang, but they didn't even know that I was the CEO of Shredder Gang because I was very okay being in the limelight. But you know what? God is a master strategist, and he's a wise investor. And God told me, I've invested too much in you. I've put too much, and I must get returns on my investments. Nobody lights a lamp and puts it under a bushel. Nobody. Is this smart? It's not smart now. So I remember struggling with God. Like, I don't want to do this. Because why? Really, I had what? The fear of man. The fear of what people are going to say. The fear of sometimes people will be like, oh, why is she talking like she's talking like a leader? Because I am. I had to become comfortable with understanding who God had made me to be and calling myself who God has called me. Yes, I'm a thought leader. And I told myself one day, listen, Bunmi, you are a leader, you are not a follower. God said you are the prototype. You will stand in your generation to show women what is possible. As a single girl, as a married woman, as a mother, as a business owner, and just as a regular human being. But it sounds a little bit prideful to say that. But if that's what God says, then who am I to step back and say, let me be shy now? That's false humility. So I decided that, I'm going to step into this thing and own it. Because who am I as the clay to tell the potter what to do with my own life, right? So I've been stepping into it, growing the capacity of influence, because it grows. It grows. And as a Christian, the more you show yourself obedience, the more God increases your capacity and increases your influence, right? So I remember just after COVID, on a Sunday evening, God told me to share the story about when my husband got laid off from his job. This had happened 4 years before. But it made sense because so many families had gone through several things during COVID. And I was like, okay, cool, no wahala. Let's maybe run them. So I think it was like six-part post or whatever. I posted it. But I was just doing it for my own, just for my own community, just to inspire them. By the next morning, I just started seeing people following me. I saw it on Linda. I saw it on Instablog. I saw it on Shade Room. I was shaking. I was literally shaking. I called my friends. I'm like, let's come and get on a group call. They got on the group call. I was like, Bunmi, what's the issue? It's like, okay, who asked you to post this thing? I said, it's God. He said, okay, for what? I said, to encourage people. Who is he trying to encourage? The world. He said, okay, the world, are they on your page? Where are they? They are on where? Instablog. They are on where? They are on Linda. Where are they? They are on Shade Room. So if God wants the fame of his name to go viral, then you have to be okay with you putting yourself out there. So I now said, you know what, actually, that's quite brilliant. That's right. It was from that point that I started to understand how much more we need to speak. And which is why I do what I do. Dr. Foy said it. Marriage is under attack. Family is under attack. People believe that men are scum. Women believe that men are scum. People believe that there's nothing really great about you can marry and divorce, there's nothing. But is that really true? Dr. Foy, are you scum?
I'm not.
Tunde, I don't think you are scum. Adi Kabasa, I know you are not scum. I see how you celebrate your wife. But if there are people who are not showing what is possible, how do you know that it's possible? And you know what? The people that are really throwing stones are the Christians. Kanye West said it. Say, oh, not a Christian. They'll be the first ones to judge me. It's true. We will be the first ones. Say, what's even wrong with this one? She's just, people, I hear it all the time. That Jbums, she overshares. She shares too much. She's oversharing. I'm oversharing because you people are not carrying your own slack. Some of us are overworked. So we have to be showing, because you are not doing your own work. At least do your own work. Let me rest. Abi? There's so much to be done. I like sharing stories because I feel like it connects with you more. I remember maybe like 2 years ago, I traveled with my husband. And it was actually an all-expense paid trip, right? And one of my friends called me, like one of my guy friends. He was like, man, that trip was good. And I told him, I gave him a loan. I was like, you know what? This is how it happened. He's like, how come they paid for your trip? And I told him, I said, you know what? God was looking for a couple to diffuse the fragrance of Christian marriages. And who did he find? Exactly, right? So, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that my marriage is perfect. But every single day, we are walking toward Christ and showing other people that it is possible. Another person who understood influence so well in the Bible was Esther. We quote her all the time. Born for such a time as this. You are also born for such a time as this. She took the risk. When we think about the king, that guy was crazy. That guy, they mad. They meant. Imagine telling your wife to come and strip in front of people. We think about him and we think, oh, this was like a righteous king. He was not. You cannot even go into his presence unannounced. They'll just kill you. But she understood influence. She understood that as a queen, this is my chance to save my people from a genocide. So what did she do? Everybody, oh yeah, go and pray and fast. And then after, we regroup, we decide what we're going to do. And she came before the king and laid her claim, using her influence for a purpose, using her influence to serve. Influence has great responsibility. You are not just in a place of influence to say you're in a place of influence. We always quote the scripture that, oh, a man's work will bring him before great men. Oh, if thou hast find a man diligent in his ways, for he will stand before kings and not mere men. Do we read the next verse? It then tells you, when you then go before the king, this is what you are supposed to do, helping you understand that you are not there to indulge and to feel among and to feel like you have arrived. You are there to serve. Says, do not drink XYZ. Do not eat XYZ. Influence is for service, and your influence comes great responsibility. So I'm here to charge you today. It is not about 1,000 followers, 1 million followers. All that is great. But right now, what is it that you have in your hand? What is stopping you from being light and salt? Is it the fear of man? Is it the fear of not being good enough? Is it the fear of people looking at you in a microscope? I tell myself all the time, I don't care how you look at me, because on that day when I stand before God, He's going to look at my life and say, with this life, how many sons did you bring into glory? Thank you very much.